of tobacco, the raw product.
It's the nicotine that addicts you, but it's the tar that kills you.
And the smoke, yes, and the chemicals in the smoke.
So basically, anything you smoke that's been combusted will damage.
Yeah.
So, just to go back to Matilia's question, you said that it was safer to smoke one of my tailor-mades rather than smoke the stuff that I would grow in my ground.
No, I said there was no health
There's
difference. No health difference. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm interested in the regulation of, or the regulation of supply. There's been a lot of, your submission yourself talks a lot about managing demand, but there is always, with the manufacture and supply of any dangerous drug to a community, there is both a demand side set of solutions and a supply side set of solutions. I'm interested in the supply side set of solutions. One of the alternatives for managing tobacco regulation is to include it in the Misuse of Drugs Act, it being a drug after all. Do you have any views about that?
I don't believe it needs to be regulated through that process, and the concern I would have around that is that there will, if you don't manage both, and I take your point around the supply side and the demand side, but if the demand side outstrips the supply side, or is higher than the supply side, what you'll get is a gap in that supply, and you'll get illegal or illicit product filling that gap.
Which of course could be managed through other means or prevented through other means. Your submission says that because of the smoke-free legislation, New Zealand has one of the most regulated environments for supply of tobacco in the world. Is that correct?
Yes, we believe so.
Yet the only constraint on the supply is an age limit and a restriction on advertising and sponsorship. Unlike alcohol, for example, there is very little control over retailers, for example, where tobacco can be sold. There's no licensing system for tobacco. I know you've suggested that might be okay. There is a strong argument for much greater regulation to demonstrate that your product is safe for human consumption, which it clearly is not. And so one other option is to work through the Amey process, that tobacco products should be regulated through the Hazard Act as a potential hazardous substance and assessed for fitness for human consumption. Have you done any work looking at the implications of using that process for your product?
I don't believe we have, but again, I think it goes back to the supply and demand point that you made before. If the demand for a product outstrips the supply of a product, I think there will be processes that fill, or product that fills that space.
Right, and one of those options, of course, is a medicalised model, where those who have an addiction have access to medical support to manage that addiction through products that may include tobacco, but certainly may not, through the provision of nicotine replacement therapy. So you're arguing that we, as a committee, should not consider any form of major regulatory constraints on the supply of tobacco because of the fear of an illicit trade, notwithstanding that there are other alternatives that we could choose that would manage to elicit that demand. Are you still arguing that?
Look, my belief is that, and the committee of course will review all of the processes, but my belief is that whilst consumers, adult consumers, wish to smoke and choose to smoke, and to date evidence says that approximately 20% of the population in developed countries choose to smoke. Whilst that percentage of people choose to smoke, I believe there will be a supply and demand tension, and regulating tobacco products through a medical process and limiting the supply will only, in my view, increase illicit trade.
Have you actively opposed the solution, one potential solution for removing displays in stores?
Sorry?
Has your company actively opposed moves to remove from stores the display of tobacco products?
In terms of the packets?
Yeah.
If you refer to retail display bans, it's our view that retail display bans won't dampen demand. Consumers who want to smoke will continue to smoke.
do you not agree with research that shows that if you remove those retail displays, then it reduces the initiation of smokers, particularly new and younger smokers, who then won't see the products. But those, so that it helps to curb new use.
I mean, smokers make a conscious decision. I mean,
No, I'm not talking about smokers.
Yeah.
I'm talking about those who are encouraged to engage in smoking activity because they see cigarettes accessible in a very obvious way behind counters in stores
Sure.
because of the continual display of those products. Do you have any views or evidence that shows that that's not the case?
yeah, I would argue that research shows that the main significant impact on youth access in particular is family and peer influence.
Yeah, but you don't have evidence that shows that there is no influence from the use of retail.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Can I just ask, sorry, one
Sure.
does your company make any contribution to any New Zealand political party or politician?
No,
None at all?
no.
And have you ever?
It's not our current practice to, but we have in the past.
And to whom and how much in time?
We would have to go back and check details out like that. We can provide that to the committee.
Could you provide that to the committee? That would be very helpful.
Sure.
Thank you.
Kia ora. You made the point that people choose to smoke. Internationally, it's been scoped that the indigenous people, the tangata whenua, through a whole lot of other mishaps, lower pay rates, all of that stuff correlates with smoking. What's your response to that? That 600 of the so many people who die in this country are Maori, and that it seems to be that people in the lower socioeconomic arena really chase cigarette smoking.
I mean, tobacco is a highly taxed product, and is a highly taxed product.
Yeah.
And I don't have any detail around why there is the demographics of smoking are skewed.
Wouldn't you think that being the major company and the profit margin that you make, which is very good, that you would have put some effort into that?
We sell tobacco products for all of New Zealand. We don't. We sell and distribute across
Well, no, I'm
the country.
talking about Maori, mate.
Yeah,
You cut the whole of New Zealand cake,
Yeah.
but let's be specific. But can I come back to another issue? A cynic reading your introduction here would say that you're trying to toss to us to shake down the illicit tobacco trade, even with this documentation here. So there's been a lot of effort into proving that the illicit trade is running rampant in this country, understandably, like other things. But then how do you own your part in legally peddling your product to all New Zealanders?
Well, we
Are you
operate.
trying to differentiate between what's legal and what's illegal and saying that there is a sense and reason that doesn't kill people or whatever else?
What we're saying is that we are a commercial business operating within the laws of New Zealand.
And it's a legal product.
It's a legal product.
But the effort that you put in to focus on the illicit trade seems to smack, to me anyway, smack of commercialisation about trying to pit, your competition. What we're trying to ensure is that it's recognised that a lot of people lose their lives through smoking.
And I think the point in the illicit trade is to raise the awareness with the committee that simply if you do not address the illicit trade.
But people will die whether it's illicit trade or through your company.
Again, we operate within the rules of the New Zealand government. We're a commercial business. We sell a legal product, and we put forward our views that if the illicit trade is not managed, it will expand and it will increase.
Your 5 points that you note in here, the top 3 are already kosher in some legal form. So why are you suggesting those top 3? And the other 2 I can understand needs it's work in progress. You seem to have suggested those things that you
prosecute because of the current legislation. We are recommending that legislation should be strengthened.